Penguin Random House Audio presents A Stranger in Your Own City, Travels in the Middle East Long War. This is the author, Ghaith Abdul-Ahad. Iraqis and palm trees. Who resembles whom? There are millions of Iraqis and as many, or perhaps somewhat fewer, palm trees. Some have had their fronds burned. Some have been beheaded. Some have had their backs broken by time, but are still trying to stand. Some have dried bunches of dates. Some have been uprooted, mutilated, and exiled from their orchards. Some have allowed invaders to lean on their trunk. Some are combing the winds with their fronds. Some stand in silence. Some have fallen. Some stand tall and raise their heads high despite everything in this vast orchard, Iraq. When will the orchard return to its owners? Not to those who carry axes, not even to the attendant who assassinates palm trees, no matter what the color of his knife. Sinan Anton, The Corpse Washer. Author's Note. This book is a work of non-fiction based on the life experiences and recollections of the author. The majority of the stories told here took place in the midst of violence and civil wars. And in many cases, the people featured in these stories, both the victims of that violence and its perpetrators, asked for the names to be changed for their protection. A lot of literature has been published on Iraq and the rise of the Islamic State and sectarianism in the region. And the author is indebted to many writers and journalists for their brilliant books on these subjects. In particular, Charles Tripp's A History of Iraq, Samuel Helfond's Compulsion in Religion, Johann Franzen's Pride and Power, Fawaz Girgis' ISIS, A History, and of course, the mighty Hanna Batato and his authoritative work, The Old Social Classes and the Revolutionary Movement of Iraq. Prologue. Hotel Room, Baghdad, 2007. Late at night, I am awake in my hotel bed, listening to the sounds of a city at war, the distant thuds of mortars crashing in the green zone, the monotonous din of supply convoys, shrouded in the safety of the dark curfew hours. There are rumblings in the street below and the howling of street dogs. Dawn will break soon, the clashes will resume, car bombs will start blowing up in the morning rush hour. The sounds, like the war, have become repetitive, rhythmic, and very predictable. Like insomniacs counting sheep to fall asleep, I play my own game, sifting through the faces of friends from pre-invasion days. I try to place each one on the sectarian map of a fragmented city. Tonight, I mentally run through a faded school picture, taken on a spring day in 1991, just before the Second Gulf War. A group of friends in high-waisted jeans and tucked-in t-shirts, posing in front of the tall, imposing brick facade of the Jesuit-built, subsequently nationalized school. Scrawny limbs, hollowed chests, childish and naughty eyes, and the first traces of mustaches lining their lips. I try to imagine their lives in the context of the civil war raging outside my hotel room. Who was a Shia and who was a Sunni? How many were kidnapped and how many killed? How many members of militias and how many in exile? Those with easy-to-classify family names emerge first. Ahmed must be a Shia. Ra'id is a Sunni. He used to be proud of a distant tribal relation to the great leader, an association that must haunt him in these days of Shia death squads. Basil was Christian and had long since left Iraq. The game is hard. Old memories can't always be translated into the latest sectarian terminology, and I fail to place most of my friends on the new sectarian map of Baghdad. The poet, who I presume to be a Shia, just because he lived close to the Shia shrine in Kadhimiya, turned out to be a Sunni from Mosul. He dallied with radical Islam, grew a long beard, and flirted with Sunni insurgents, before fleeing from Shia death squads into Syria. He could have been a useful contact in these days. But when a few years later I met him in Dubai, he drank his whiskey neat and was back to writing poetry. The young boys from the high school picture are now scattered between Dubai, Amman, Liverpool and Toronto. a neurosurgeon, a pediatrician, an architect, a civil engineer, and a couple of university professors. A businessman who twice made a multi-million-dollar fortune and twice lost it in the stock market. Alas, none is a vicious militia commander. There are no sectarian politicians and no killers among them. They are useless friends in a Baghdad torn by civil war, where one needs contacts among the different fighting groups to help negotiate the multiple front lines. I have become a stranger in my own city. The hotel bed is narrow with a pale wooden frame, sagging in the middle where two planks are missing. The room is heavy with the dust of 2 decades of war, sanctions, and occupation. 2 car bombs have left long, thin cracks on the walls. Plastic sheeting covers a broken window, and pipes are dripping in the bathroom, where layers of grimy green mold carpet the corners. The hotel was once a fashionable enterprise with the sharp, concrete corners of brutalist architecture, chic 70s furniture, and an excellent bakery. The swimming pool, with its deep blue tiles, was elegant and exceptionally clean. The cold, over-chlorinated water frothed in little waves over the edge, and floating eucalyptus leaves would cast twirling shadows on its blue tiles before being scooped up by a diligent staff member. A long life ago, I swam here every summer. A benevolent, wealthy, formerly communist grand-aunt paid my entry fees. She also introduced me to Russian literature and elrophilia. I used to sit at one of the wide plastic tables by the poolside playing Uno with other boys and girls. We ate melon, ice cream, and sometimes, if we could afford it, croissant sandwiches. When most of the guests left, we stayed behind, racing each other in the pool or swimming endless laps until it was dark and too cold. A few days after the American invasion and the toppling of Saddam's statue in central Baghdad, foreign journalists took over the hotel, adding its name to a long list of war-zone hotels that stretch from Saigon to Beirut. The journalists, Americans and British, with a spattering of French and a couple of Italians, were young and lean, dressed in khakis and scarves. They sat around the pool, drank Turkish beer, and became rowdy and festive. In the post-coital bliss of war survivors, they caroused and rekindled old affairs from previous wars or embarked on new ones, to be revived later in Tripoli or Gaza. They reminisced about Moscow in the 90s and Kabul in 2001, and in their "we liberated the city" attitude, despaired at the ingratitude and dullness of the Iraqis, lamenting their previous war subjects, the noble Chechens, the feisty Lebanese, or the beautiful Bosnians. One night, sitting around the same white plastic tables, I told a group of them that I used to come here and swim with friends before the war. They gave me kind, patronizing, and unbelieving smiles. How can there have been life in Baghdad before they had arrived? How dare I introduce normality into their adventure sphere? We were designated to be victims or the victimizers in their stories. I felt I was an intruder on their war and a bit sorry that we Iraqis couldn't be more exciting. After the war, I found a job as a translator, accompanying journalists as they traveled around the city and the country, and I cringed every time I had to translate one question, the only one that seemed to matter. Are you a Sunni or a Shia? They asked it in a crass and vulgar way. There was no subtlety about it, just in-your-face directness and urgency, as if everything depended on that single answer. One's character was drawn with stick-figure simplicity: Sunni, oppressor; Shia, victim. Well, Saddam was a Sunni, they said, and so all the Sunnis must support him, right? When did "from Baghdad" become an insufficient answer to the question, where are you from? Even before the city fragmented and divided, and the civil war raged in the streets, the country was defined by outsiders on binary basis. The sect and ethnicity had become the most important identifier of a person. Social or political classifications, history, none of that mattered anymore. I invented a game called Play with Foreigners, dedicated to those who thought they were smart enough to guess one's sect from a few clues. I dangled bits and pieces of personal life for them and watched, in their binary cognition of black and white, Hutu and Tutsi, Muslim and Serbian, their wild hunt, sniffing for
Sample complete. Ready to continue?